Peter, I mean, I listened to the full clip that we played before we played Lewis and George just then. And it struck me that, not that long ago, let's say in the 60s, what George Galloway said would pass without too much comment. But now it sounds, to my ears, homophobic and regressive. How did it sound to yours?
Well, what I heard George Galloway say very clearly is that gay relationships are, quote, not normal and not equal. And he further went on to say he didn't want his children to be taught that gay relationships are equal or normal. Now, that echoes the kind of far-right extremism of the British National Party and other far-right sects. It has nothing to do with the history of the Labour movement, which George Galloway claims to be a part of. What he said was clearly deeply, deeply offensive. It was giving gist to the idea that gay people aren't normal, are not equal, and do not deserve to be so. That's profoundly shocking. Profoundly shocking.
But shocking, look, Galloway is a highly litigious individual, so we've got to be very, very careful how we talk about him. Do you think the dog whistle there was, this is for Gaza, George Galloway? He was semaphoring a dislike of homosexual relationships to the base that is angry with Keir Starmer's Labour for not having a firmer position on Gaza and the ceasefire, i.e. his Muslim base, which maybe shares his views as to what a normal family looks like?
Well, first of all, not all Muslims are homophobic. I know plenty of Muslim people.
I'm not saying they are.
I know you're not.
I'm not saying they are, but why on earth would he come out with something like that? He's a clever man. What was he actually saying, and to whom?
Well, I just want to reiterate, not all Muslim people are homophobic. There's been a big sea change in Muslim attitudes in recent years. More and more Muslim parents accept their LGBT plus kids. More and more support equal rights, protection against discrimination and hate crime. So to suggest that this is in any way...
Yes, but homosexuality is punishable in many Muslim countries and legal only in a few.
Well, that is true.
That's my point here.
I can't say why George Galloway said those comments, but some people have said, and I'm not saying it's true, but some people have suggested that he is seeking and relying on a Muslim base of support, and therefore to shore up that support, he wanted to parrot a very traditional and increasingly not accepted Muslim line against LGBT plus people. Now, I don't know whether that's the case or not, but certainly it doesn't square with his support decades ago for the principle of equality for all. He never used to make these kind of qualifications. He never used to single out gay people and say that we are not normal or equal. The question is, why is he now doing it?
It's not because he's got young children and he doesn't want them growing up to think that a normal family is a mummy and a daddy, which has been part of the normal educational world for donkey's years, hasn't it? Jane has two daddies, or Ian has two mummies. Do you remember these books are available in libraries and schools and have been since, the 80s?
Well, George Galloway is repeating or propagandizing a very traditional orthodox view of family life. As well as same-sex families, there are lots of single-parent families. There were lots of intergenerational families, extended families, where a mum and dad and kids may live with an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent. There's no one single model of family relationship anymore. And what we're trying to say is that all those different forms of relationship, if there's love and there's support within them, they are fine. They are equal. They are normal. They're part of the spectrum. They're part of the spectrum
and
of family life in the UK.
completely second all of that. What about he's gone to a sort of evolutionary point, which is what he calls the normal family, I'm doing inverted commas, of a mum and dad and kids, is the best construct for the propagation of the species. That's how he glossed his remarks. He basically said, I'm interested in the survival of humanity. So it's in, this is why I want my children to believe that a normal family is a man, a woman and kids. So what about that point he made, the evolutionary biologist point?
Well, that is laughable ignorance. For a start, if you teach that gay people are normal and equal, it won't make the whole population gay. Gay people will always be a small minority within the wider society. So there'll always be enough heterosexual men and women to propagate the species. Plus, of course, increasingly, same-sex families are having children through donor insemination or IVF. So, same-sex couples can produce children. They are producing children. There are thousands of them across the country, and the research shows that those children are loved and cared for, and that they end up just as well adjusted and happy as those raised in traditional families. So it's completely nonsense for George to suggest that. It's not factually based. It comes across as scaremongering.
Do you think that he hung up on Lewis because he'd been caught out? Why do you think he hung up?
I don't know. I suspect he wanted to just discuss the election and didn't want this issue brought up again. Quite clearly, he's got a lot of flack over it, and rightly so. As I said, his views on gay people echo those of far-right extremists.
Or indeed Islamic extremists. Who don't allow it within their cultures or pretend it doesn't happen, like they pretend rape doesn't happen, for example.
Islamic, Christian, Judaist, Hindu, Sikh extremists, they all share similar...
Yeah, you're right to say all religious extremists, not just Islamic. Thank you for picking me up on that.
And I just want to just reiterate, we must not go down the road of damning all Muslim people as homophobic. I know you're not suggesting that, but that's what some critics are saying.
Absolutely.
They're saying he's reflecting the Muslim view. Well, there are different ranges of views within the Muslim community, and increasingly they are accepting of LGBT plus people. And I want to pay tribute to Muslim scholars, clerics, and community leaders who are increasingly reaching out and accepting LGBT people as part of their community. That's great progress. And just as I want Muslim people to support LGBT plus rights, I want gay people to support the rights of Muslims. If we all stand together and work together, then we'll have a much happier, better, kinder society.
Peter Tatchell, you've said it very well. Thank you so much for your time.